Welcome to our newest video tour of Delbarton's newest facility, the Pizzo Family Field House, now proudly open and serving Delbarton student athletes here at Regan Stadium. It gives me great pleasure to share with you, as we did with St. Benedict Hall 2 years ago, the fruits of the work of our donors and our partners with our contractors, our staff here at school, and in particular our coaches, who did so much to design this building and shape it in a way that's going to best serve our student athletes as well as our spectators and visiting teams. So, as you can see here, this is the plaque that indicates what this building is. The Pizzo Family Field House, which is dedicated in the memory of Kenneth Pizzo Sr. by his son Ken Pizzo Jr. and his wife Megan Pizzo. This building is approximately 32,000 square feet, but when you look at it, it doesn't look quite as big as that might suggest. And that's because a substantial part of the building is underground. It's built into that small hillside on the east end of the stadium, where opposite the scoreboard, we now look directly onto the field, as well as to our new bleachers and our new tennis courts. Our tour is going to focus primarily on this building, but we'll also take a look at some of the other features that have enhanced the stadium and really make this a state-of-the-art facility for our student athletes, our coaches, and our fans. So let's take a look inside. So I'm standing here in the Coughlin family lobby of the Pizzo Family Field House, given to us as a generous gift from the Coughlin family, from Tim Coughlin, class of 1999, and his wife Nicole. We're very grateful that all of our donors who contributed to this project have enabled us to create such a magnificent facility that, in this case in particular, will enable us to showcase the accomplishments of our teams. To my left and to my right, you'll see trophy cases that are designed to house the awards and memorabilia for the 7 different teams that will inhabit this building. A lot of this memorabilia and trophies have been stored away because we didn't have any place to put them. Now we'll be able to properly showcase and celebrate their accomplishments. As I said, there are 7 different teams that are going to be using this building. Football and lacrosse, which will share one large locker room complex with its own bathrooms and showers. Tennis and wrestling, which will share a bathroom facility with track and cross country. Football and lacrosse have had locker room facilities for a long time, but to say that they are inadequate would be an understatement. Now they have a state-of-the-art facility that you'll be able to see in a few moments. All of those other teams have never had anything here on campus, or in the case of wrestling, had something until about 10 years ago, but when we expanded our athletic training facility, they actually had to go off campus and rent space in Parsippany to practice. Now they'll have a home here on campus, not merely a locker room, but also a practice facility, so that they, like the other teams using this building, can use their time much more efficiently, do what they need to do to prepare, and then, in the case of wrestling, still compete in the gymnasium, but nonetheless be able to be on campus, be a part of the everyday environment here after school in a way that they simply could not when they had to leave right away to go to practice during their winter season. So now that we've looked at the lobby, the 2 main features of this floor are the wrestling room to my right and the Ramsey Family Strength and Conditioning Center to my left. So let's take a look at the wrestling room first. Behind me is our brand new wrestling practice facility, dedicated in honor of Coach Mike Gray, the head coach of Cornell University's wrestling program from the class of 2006, and Patrick Glory, the 2023 NCAA 125-pound champion from the class of 2018, who will be graduating from Princeton University this spring. This facility was provided by a generous gift of the Dobby family. As I said earlier, our wrestling team for about the past 10 years has not been able to practice on campus, and they don't actually have a whole lot of home matches. So even though our program has reached unprecedented levels of accomplishment and distinction among programs nationally, there was a certain disconnect between their everyday activities and the regular life of the student body. Teams that have to practice or play off campus find that that's a challenge. We wanted to do as much as we could to bring as many sports back to campus, not just with this facility, but with the rest of our planning through the remainder of this decade. And this is our good first step. So this facility is about 2,500 square feet. It will shortly have customized mats and pads on the wall, which will enable all of our wrestlers to practice here in one place. Their locker room is directly beneath us in the players and coaches area, and so they can come, do what they need to do, and leave. Certainly, it also provides an ample space for our summer programs, like our summer wrestling camp, to be able to use this not simply to train young wrestlers, but also to provide a way for students who are potentially interested in Delbarton to see what kind of facilities we can offer them should they come here. Our wrestlers are extraordinarily excited to finally have a home on campus, and again, we're very grateful to the Davies as well as all of our other donors for helping to make this space and all of these spaces possible. So now I'm standing next to the entrance of the Ramsey Family Strength and Conditioning Center, which is provided by a generous gift from one of our regents and alumni, Patrick Ramsey, and his wife, Kristen. Our previous weight training facility was less than half the size of what we're about to see. It was fairly crowded, and it had not changed a whole lot since the mid-1980s when it was first created. Clearly, given the expansion of our athletic programs, the high levels of participation we have across all sports, and just a general increase in awareness of the importance of strength and conditioning, not just for athletes, but for students and staff in general, we clearly needed new space. In addition, having this space here right next to the field, right next to the track, enables lower level teams as well as in-season athletes at the varsity level to rotate back and forth from strength and conditioning training to practice on the track or on the field and back, ultimately creating a virtuous circle that will enable them to perform and compete at ever higher levels. So let's go take a look inside. So I'm standing in the middle of our new strength and conditioning center. As you can see, it's a large, bright, airy space. All the equipment that you see around me is brand new. We went from less than half the size of the room that we have to this space, which is about the same size as the wrestling room, about 2,500 square feet. We now have 14 racks that go up and down the length of the room, as well as a complete selection of dumbbells, free weights, medicine balls, and other pieces of equipment, some of which, like these hamstring racks, we simply didn't have before. Most importantly, in addition to the new equipment, all of which is branded, as you can see, with Green Wave or Delbarton insignia and logos, is the space enables more students to come to flow around the room, to be able to use the room and the equipment more efficiently, to come, do what they need to do, and then get where they need to go. So we opened this space about a week ago, and we're already seeing a significant uptick in activity in the room, both in the morning before school as well as after school. So we're going to take a little video panorama for you to get a sense of it. And in particular, if you look over my right shoulder, you see all these glass windows that overlook our brand new parking lot. Parking lots are not terribly dramatic or exciting, but their impact on the experience for game day here, as well as for practice, is really significant. We were able to add approximately 100 parking spaces to an area of campus that was always overcrowded with cars and difficult to move whenever we had a game, even one that didn't draw an enormous number of spectators. Now, with these 100 extra spaces, we've not solved our parking challenges, but we've significantly alleviated them. And now when you come on game day, it'll be much easier for you to find a parking space and not have to walk quite so far to get to see where the action is. So in this section of the first floor, we have a number of spaces that are primarily for the adults involved in our athletic program, but that nonetheless are important for us to note. And one is this space, the Colello Officials Locker Room, which is a gift from the family of PJ and Diane Colello. PJ's a graduate of the class of 1990. You've probably seen at games that officials come in, they do their thing, often taking a little bit of heat from fans, and then really have nowhere to go. Often they get changed in the parking lot. We thought it was important for us to provide a space for officials to come, be able to get changed, perhaps take a shower and get cleaned up, but just to have a sense that we're trying to be as hospitable as we can. There are very few schools that offer this kind of hospitality for officials. And it's important for us as a Benedictine school in particular to extend our hospitality, particularly to people who very often get overlooked. One other kind of space that we've added here in this building is exemplified by this room, the Covello Family Coach's Office, a gift from the Covello family. This particular space has a duplicate at the opposite end of the hallway. And again, it's meant primarily for adults, but it provides a suitable meeting space for our coaches to prepare, plan, break down film, have the conversations that they need among themselves and perhaps with their student athletes to be able to succeed at the highest level. It has a beautiful view out over the field, And it's also the main location for the computer that governs the use of our huddle camera, which is mounted on the building and which overlooks the field from end to end. So now we have the ability to do filming as well as live streaming from the side as well as from end zone to end zone, a feature that, again, you're not going to find too often in schools in this area. So we've looked at the areas that are primarily for coaches and student athletes. Now we're going to take a look at some important sections for our fans. We value our fans just as much as we value our student athletes and our coaches. And this space right here, the Tupper Family Concessions Area, a gift from the family of Dennis and Gina Tupper. Dennis is a graduate of the class in 1999, as well as a member of our Board of Regents, is a physical expression of how much we value our fans, and in particular, how much we value our parent volunteers. Historically, here at the stadium, we've had to make do with grills being brought down and tents being put up to sell food and to make things comfortable for our fans, both home and away. Now we have a fully equipped kitchen that we can use to prepare food and serve it right out here on the plaza in front of Pizzo Family Field House. And again, making it easier for our volunteers and much more enjoyable for our fans. We're going to add some seating out here in front of the building, so if you want to grab a hot dog and sit down for a minute, you can readily watch the game from the end zone view as well as go back to our brand new stands. Here I'm standing at a place that many of our fans and many of our parents thought would never happen. Yes, we now actually have public bathrooms with running water. It was very important when we created this building that we add sufficient facilities for all of our guests, or as many of our guests as we can, and this is the fruit of that effort. So the era of the Porta-Johns here at Regan Stadium and really across the campus is over. So one of the most important features of the Pizzo Family Field House is that it provides as many amenities for our guests as we can. Concessions being one, restrooms being another, as well as just a variety of spaces to stand or sit and to take in not just the game, but also the beauty of this whole north end of campus. This building and its surrounding landscaping and hardscaping has created a spectacular view shed from Old Main to the south, all the way to the trees along Mendham Road to the north. So it's just a visually beautiful place to watch a game and just to experience the physical beauty that is such a hallmark of the entire Delbarton campus. So now that we've seen the first or the field level of the Pizzo Family Field House, let's go down to the student athlete and players level to see the functional heart of the building day to day for our student athletes and their coaches. So I'm standing now in the lobby area of the lower level of the Pizzo Family Field House. As I mentioned earlier, this is really the functioning heart of the building day to day for our student athletes and their coaches. To my right is the entrance, which we would designate it as the players and coaches entrance. Really, the upstairs, where we were a few moments ago, is the space for fans and for parents. This entrance, right off of the parking lot, is primarily for student athletes and coaches. Although to my left, there is an elevator that reaches all three levels of the building. And certainly if anyone who's coming to visit needs the use of an elevator, they are welcome to come in to use it. So to my right is the football and lacrosse locker room. To my left is the tennis and wrestling locker room. And due ahead of me is the track and field and cross-country locker room. And behind that, we actually have a full-size visitors locker room as well. Visitor locker rooms are fairly rare, and they usually just are a room, in some places just in the cafeteria, not even a locker room per se. Again, as a part of our hospitality value, we thought it was important for us to offer a space to our visiting teams that not only has a place for them to sit and store their equipment, but also has a bathroom that they can use exclusively. What I'm standing on right now is one of the most interesting features of this building, namely, it's a sprint track. So the surface that I'm standing on is actually designed to be used for practicing sprinting, primarily for winter track or indoor track. So at either end of this long hallway, we're going to have pads on the wall that will enable students to use this safely without worrying about crashing into the walls. Another important feature of this area is storage. Something that, like storage, sounds very simple, but for any of us who've built a house or built a building for our work, we know that if you don't think carefully about storage, it will come back to haunt you year after year. So it was very important that, since we've historically been very much challenged for good storage space, that we create as much storage space here in this building as possible. So So directly ahead of me on my right, and you can see from the outside 2 large garage doors, that's our bulk storage area. So for things like high jump pits, pole vault poles, lacrosse goals, our golf carts, those things that historically have been kind of scattered all over the place, now they'll have a home here. Over my left shoulder, you'll see our laundry and equipment storage area. Now we have a place where we can maintain our equipment, store our equipment properly, and make sure that we can get the maximum useful life out of it by taking better care of it. So we'll be able to launder students' uniforms, to inventory them much more effectively, and so this space, which has specialized compact storage equipment, will enable us to store every piece of athletic equipment and uniform owned by Delbarton School. Not students' personal equipment, but the items owned by the school. So we can inventory them, take care of them, repair them if we need to, and ultimately get the most of our investment out of them by being good stewards of our resources. So let's take a look at one of these locker rooms, namely the lacrosse and football locker room. So I'm standing in front of the Volpe family lacrosse and football locker room, which is a gift of the family of Chris and Jean Marie Volpe, parents of Alex and Chris Volpe, in honor of their family member and friend, Monsignor Philip Franceschini. This locker room is the largest of the locker rooms here. It has 78 lockers, and as you can see, it's now fully inhabited by our varsity and JV lacrosse teams. Previously, our JV team practiced up at the 40 Acres complex, and so even though they play right after varsity games in the season, they had to practice and warm up about a mile away, get on a bus, come all the way down here to be ready to play. Now, with both teams inhabiting the same locker room, they can practice together, just as our football team has done for a long time. They can rotate in and out of the strength and conditioning center, and that when game time comes, they're right here, ready to go. So again, a much more efficient and effective use of our student athletes and coaches' time. So take a look at this locker room because it's pretty impressive. I'm now standing in front of the Schindel training room, a gift of Doctors Michael and Lisa Schindel, parents of Peter of the class of 2024. Right now, our main athletic training room is in the gymnasiums, right outside the St. Joseph gym. But that's about half a mile from here. By having a training room here in Pizzo Family Field House, student athletes who are practicing and playing in this area will be able to get taped, treated, and in case of an emergency, will have direct access to the outside where they can be taken to the doctor or to the hospital. So once again, this makes our athletic trainers' jobs much easier to do by having a home base here at the stadium, not just on practice days, but even more importantly on game days. I'm standing in front of the Guy Russo locker room, a gift of the Tavoso and Grogan families in honor of Guy Russo, a longtime assistant wrestling coach here at Delbarton who's been an integral part in building our wrestling program into the national power that it is. As I mentioned earlier, our wrestling team had to go off campus for the last 10 years to be able to practice and only competed here on campus a couple of times a year. Now they have a practice room upstairs, as we saw, as well as a locker room to have that kind of locker room experience and build up a locker room culture that is so essential to the success of our teams across our athletic program. This room also houses facilities for our tennis team in the spring. So let's take a look inside. It's certainly significantly smaller than the football and lacrosse locker room, but because the lockers are a little smaller, they need less equipment, we're able to get 38 lockers into this room, more than enough space to accommodate our wrestlers as well as our tennis team. So I'm standing now in the track and field and cross country locker room. Although the room itself is significantly smaller than the football and lacrosse locker room, because these lockers are a few inches narrower and because we filled in the interior space within the perimeter of the room, we actually have 80 lockers in this space, which again, for our fairly large track and field program, especially in the springtime, now every student athlete who wants one for that team has a locker. And this is a team that never had anything. They've only had a track since 2009. So they've come a long way in a very short period of time, and we're especially happy to be able to offer them, as well as tennis and wrestling, a suitable home for a program of distinction. I'm standing now in our visitors' locker room, which was the gift of an anonymous donor family. As I said, often visitor locker rooms are really a couple of tables in a cafeteria or a tent. That's all we were able to provide for a long time. Now we're able to provide an actual room with the bathrooms dedicated just for visiting teams, should they wish to use it. It's certainly not as elaborate as our home locker rooms, just benches and hooks on the wall, but still, it offers a chance for a visiting team to get itself together and be able to prepare to compete as best they can. And again, it's a sign of our commitment to hospitality for everyone that comes here to Delbarton's campus. So I'm standing now in what is one of the more dramatic spaces here in Pizzo Family Field House, the Van Royen Family Reception Hall, which is a gift of Grant and Laura Van Royen, the parents of McLaren and Walker Van Royen. This space is meant to serve any number of purposes here at Pizzo Family Field House. Primarily, it's meant to serve as a place of hospitality for our families, for our student athletes, and for our home fans. What can this space be used for? Well, it can be used for a lot of different things. It'll be set up shortly with tables and chairs that we'll leave permanently out like we do in the cafeteria. So you can have an impromptu team meeting, you can have team pasta dinners here, you can have tailgates here, you can have team banquets here. It can be rented out for other kinds of celebrations, like birthdays or graduation parties, whatever. Because it's so far from the main academic areas, we can have events here during the school day all year round, whenever school's in session, because between the parking, restrooms on this level, there's a prep kitchen to my right to enable catering, everything we need to have an event is right here. So you could do your thing here and not have any impact on day-to-day operations of the classroom or offices if school was in session. So we're really excited about this room, and it's not simply the room itself, but the view that you have. So let's take a look at that. I think the word wow is the best one to describe the view that you have over my right shoulder. This is the view looking west across the field from the top floor of Pizzo Family Field House, from the Van Royen Family Reception Hall, overlooking the field itself, and you get a panoramic view of the entire north end of Delbarton's campus, from Old Main over my shoulder to my right, all the way toward the brand new tennis courts on our left. The tennis courts are the last feature I wanted to talk about, but for a moment, just take in the view, because it really is spectacular. The balcony to my right is a gift in memory of Madeline Longo, given by her husband Joe Longo, his son Joe Longo from the class of 1980, his wife Pam, and their 3 sons, Michael, Andrew, and Matthew. On either side of the Van Royen Family Reception Hall are viewing balconies, where you can look straight out onto the field, or over here on the north end of the building, you get a beautiful view of our 5 brand new tennis courts. Historically, we've only had 6 tennis courts, and with the size of our tennis program and the number of students who wanted to play tennis, Coach Thompson often found himself having to cut students because he didn't have enough court space. We went with the addition of these courts from 6 courts to 11, and that enables us to keep far more students on the team, to enable more students to participate and enjoy the sport of tennis, and also, again, it gives us the ability to host events like the recent Brian Bennett tennis tournament much more efficiently, much more hospitably, and ultimately much more impactfully for our student athletes and their coaches. So take a look at the tennis courts. They really are beautiful. So our last stop is here at the S.D. family balcony, named from a gift from Warren and Linda S.D. and their son Alex, the class of 2024. This view gives you a sense of how the balcony will expand even further the options to enjoy competition here at the stadium. So again, you can go out onto the balcony and, in this case, look directly onto the field towards the spectators, just taking in the view of the northern end of campus, but obviously the game that's going on. It won't give you a great view of the tennis courts, but it still could be one if you really wanted to stand there. But if you think about the option of being outside, standing high, overlooking the field, getting a view that never existed before. So this is just one example of how all of the people that contributed to making this building happen, making Pizzo Family Field House the extraordinary addition that it is with all of its parts to our program here at Delbarton. We build buildings because we want to serve our students. We want to serve our students as athletes. We want to serve them as learners. We want to serve them in all the ways in which we try to form them as young men in the service of God and their neighbor. I am convinced that this building is going to make an enormous impact on our ability to offer the finest quality program for our student athletes, the finest quality tools for our coaches to help form our student athletes, and to provide the best possible spectator experience for our fans and for our guests. So thank you for joining me on this tour. We'll be dedicating Pizzo Family Field House and all of its interior spaces at a celebration on Saturday, May 6th. And to all of our donors who helped to make this entire project possible, thank you.